The wind howled across Antarctica's endless white expanse, but Commander Sarah Chen barely noticed it anymore. After 3 months leading the International Research Station's security detail, the constant screaming of katabatic winds had become just another background noise, like the hum of the station's environmental systems or the occasional crack of shifting ice. That changed the night the aurora turned purple. Sarah stood at the observation window, her breath fogging the reinforced glass as she watched ribbons of impossible violet light dance across the star-filled sky. In 15 years of polar operations, she'd seen every color the aurora could produce, or so she'd thought. Her hand instinctively moved to the sidearm at her hip as new lights appeared, descending through the curtain of purple like falling stars. "Control, this is Commander Chen," she keyed her comm unit. "We've got anomalous atmospheric activity. Anyone else seeing this?" Static answered. The comms were dead. The descending lights grew larger, their trajectory too controlled to be natural phenomena. Sarah's military training kicked in as she activated the station's alert system. Red warning lights bathed the corridors in crimson as she moved quickly toward the main airlock, her boots echoing on metal floors. "All personnel, this is Commander Chen. We have potential contact situation. All non-essential staff to secure locations. Response team to airlock 1. The objects, she could see 3 distinct shapes now, touched down 2 kilometers from the station, their landing melting perfect circles in the ice sheet. Even at this distance, their silvery surfaces seemed to ripple like liquid metal in the purple light still pulsing overhead. Sarah's response team assembled quickly. Dr. James Harrison, the station's lead physicist, Dr. Maya Patel, the xenobiologist, though until now her job had seemed purely theoretical, and Lieutenant Mike Torres, her second-in-command. All wore extreme cold weather gear, weapons concealed beneath layers of insulation. "Thoughts?" Sarah asked as they watched through the airlock's viewport. "Definitely artificial," Harrison said, adjusting his glasses. "The energy signature is like nothing I've ever seen. It's as if they're bending space around themselves." "And definitely alive," Patel added, checking readings on her tablet. "I'm detecting complex biological signatures, humanoid, but different." The closest object suddenly shifted, its surface flowing like quicksilver as an opening appeared. A figure emerged, tall and elegant, in what looked like a form-fitting suit that shimmered with the same purple energy that still lit the sky. No protective gear, Sarah noted, despite the -70-degree temperature. "Well," Sarah said, checking her weapon one last time, "let's go say hello." They crossed the distance in the station's all-terrain vehicle, its tracks crushing fresh snow. The alien, there was no other word for it, waited patiently, its form becoming clearer as they approached. It stood nearly 7 feet tall, with silvery skin that seemed to shift colors like oil on water. Its face was almost human, but with large, almond-shaped eyes that glowed with inner light. Sarah stepped down from the vehicle, her boots crunching in the snow. The alien's eyes fixed on her immediately, and she felt a strange warmth in her mind. "Commander Sarah Chen," the alien's voice appeared directly in her thoughts, feminine and musical. "I am Enxvaria, observer of the Celestial Trial Council. Your world has been chosen." Sarah kept her voice steady, years of training holding her surprise in check. "Chosen for what?" "To prove your worth." Enxvaria gestured, and holographic images appeared in the air between them, strange worlds, alien cities, advanced technologies. "Humanity stands at a crossroads. Your species has begun reaching for the stars, but the galaxy is not always welcoming to newcomers. Some on the Council believe you are too volatile, too unpredictable to join the galactic community." "And what do you believe?" Sarah asked, noting how her team had unconsciously moved to flank her. Enxvaria's skin rippled with colors. "I believe in testing, in proving. Your species has survived and thrived in every environment your world offers. From poles to deserts, from mountains to ocean depths, humans adapt, endure, persist. This interests us. The implications hit Sarah like a physical force. You want to test our endurance. Yes, Enxvaria's mental voice held something like approval. Through you, Commander Chen, you will face trials in the most extreme environments of your world. Succeed, and humanity will gain knowledge, protection, and a place among the stars. Fail, and if I refuse, then the Council's decision is made. Your species will be contained, your development limited, your destiny bound to this single world until you either evolve or expire. Sarah looked back at her team, seeing the weight of the moment in their eyes. The future of humanity, balanced on a nice edge of choice. She turned back to Enxvaria, straightening her spine. These trials, they're survivable. By definition, though no species has completed all 5 trials in over 10,000 years. Sarah felt a smile tug at her lips. Well then, I guess it's time to break that record. Enxvaria's skin flickered with patterns of light. You accept quickly, Commander. Some would call that reckless. Some would call it confident. Sarah stepped forward, her breath clouding in the frigid air. But mostly, it's practical. You're offering humanity a chance to prove itself. To earn our place in the galaxy, that's worth any risk. The trials will test more than your physical endurance, Enxvaria warned. They will probe your mind, your will, your very essence. Many have lost themselves in the attempt. Then it's good thing humans are stubborn, Sarah replied. When do we start? The answer came not in words, but in action. The purple aurora intensified, its light concentrating into a beam that struck the ice between them. The temperature, already far below freezing, plummeted further. Sarah's protective gear began to crack, frost forming on her faceplate. The first trial begins now, Commander Chen. Enxvaria's mental voice echoed as Sarah's team was suddenly transported back to the safety of the station, leaving her alone with the alien observer. Show me how humanity endures the impossible cold. The ice beneath Sarah's feet began to glow with that same purple light, and she felt the first real stirring of fear. But alongside it came something else, determination. Humans had survived every challenge Earth had thrown at them. Now it was time to prove they could survive whatever the galaxy had in store. The trial had begun. The cold hit Sarah like a physical wall as her protective gear continued to crack and fail. The advanced polymers, designed to withstand the harshest conditions Earth could produce, surrendered to alien energies that seemed to rewrite the laws of thermodynamics themselves. Through her rapidly frosting faceplate, she watched Enxvaria stand unaffected, the alien's silvery skin now emanating a subtle glow. Your protective technologies will not help you here. Enxvaria's thoughts brushed against Sarah's mind. The trial demands direct confrontation with the elements. Show me how humans adapt. Sarah's fingers had already gone numb, and her thoughts began to slow, the first dangerous sign of hypothermia. But military training kicked in, combining with years of polar experience. She knew she had perhaps 3 minutes before cognitive function became impaired. 2 minutes after that, she would lose consciousness. Death would follow shortly after, unless she changed the rules. With stiff fingers, she began stripping off the failing protective gear. Each piece she removed exposed her to more brutal cold, but also freed her movement. The thermal layer underneath, though inadequate for these temperatures, would allow her better mobility. She needed to move, to generate heat. Interesting choice, Enxvaria observed. Most species attempt to preserve their protective technologies, even after failure. Sometimes, Sarah grunted, forcing her body into motion. The best protection is knowing when to let go of protection. She began a series of intense exercises, jumping jacks, squats, anything to get blood flowing. Humans learned long ago that survival often means adapting quickly, not holding on to what isn't working. The purple aurora pulsed overhead, and the temperature dropped even further. Ice crystals began forming in the air itself, creating a glittering mist that refracted the alien light into thousands of prismatic shards. Sarah's breath came in sharp gasps, each inhale feeling like swallowing razor blades. But she kept moving. Your biological responses are unexpected. Enxtheria's mental voice held a note of curiosity. Your body temperature is dropping, yet your cellular activity is increasing. Sarah managed a harsh laugh between exercises. Brown fat activation, she gasped. Human bodies can generate heat through cellular processes. The colder it gets, the more we adapt. The alien's eyes glowed brighter. Yet this adaptation has limits. Your core temperature continues to fall. Sarah knew Enxthveria was right. Despite her efforts, the cold was winning. She needed more than just movement, she needed shelter. Her eyes scanned the landscape, now transformed by alien energies into something even more brutal than natural Antarctica. The ice beneath her feet had become nearly transparent, revealing depths that seemed to stretch forever. An idea struck her. You're testing our endurance, she managed between chattering teeth. But that's not how humans survived the ice ages. She dropped to her knees, using her remaining strength to start digging into the snow. Explain, Enxthveria commanded, moving closer. We survived by being smart. Sarah's fingers were bleeding now as she clawed at the ice, but the pain was distant, unimportant. By understanding that sometimes the thing trying to kill you can save you. Understanding flickered across Enxthveria's features as Sarah continued to dig, creating a small shelter in the snow and ice. The principle was basic survival. Snow was an insulator. A properly constructed snow cave could trap body heat, providing shelter even in extreme conditions. But Sarah wasn't stopping there. She positioned herself so that the alien's view was partially blocked, then pulled out the emergency flare she kept concealed. The chemical reaction would provide heat, and more importantly, the bright light refracting through the ice walls of her makeshift shelter would create a greenhouse effect. It wasn't just survival, it was using the environment's own properties against it. The purple aurora intensified again, and Sarah felt pressure building in her head. Enxthveria's mental voice came stronger now, probing. You create safety from danger, warmth from cold. This is unexpected. That's humanity for you. Sarah managed a grim smile, feeling sensations slowly return to her extremities as her shelter trapped heat. We don't just endure, we turn the tables. Yet you cannot maintain this indefinitely, Enxthveria observed. The cold will eventually penetrate any shelter. Sarah met the alien's glowing eyes. We don't need indefinitely. We just need long enough to figure out the next step. Humans survived the ice ages through intelligence, tool use, and cooperation. We're still here because we never stopped adapting, never stopped thinking. The pressure in her head increased, and Sarah realized Enxthveria wasn't just observing. The alien was scanning her thoughts, her memories. Images flashed through her mind. Early humans huddled in caves, fashioning tools and weapons, working together to survive brutal winters. Generation after generation, adapting, evolving, but never losing that core spark of innovation that had allowed them to survive when other species failed. Your species remembers. Enxthveria's mental voice held something like wonder. The cold that shaped you, the struggles that formed you, it's encoded in your very cells. We remember, Sarah confirmed, her voice stronger now as her shelter continued to protect her. And we learn. Every challenge makes us stronger. Every trial teaches us something new. That's not just human endurance, it's human evolution in action. The aurora's light suddenly shifted, its purple hue softening to a more natural green. The oppressive cold began to recede, though the temperature remained well below freezing. Sarah felt the pressure in her head ease as Enxthveria stepped back. The first trial is complete, the alien announced. You have demonstrated not just physical endurance, but adaptive intelligence. This is more than was expected. Sarah emerged from her shelter, her muscles protesting but her mind clear. Does this mean we pass? This was merely the first trial. Enxveria's skin rippled with patterns of light. But you have shown that humanity possesses qualities that merit further investigation. Prepare yourself, Commander Chen. The next trial will test different limits. The alien's form began to shimmer, and Sarah felt reality shift around her. The last thing she saw before the world changed was something that might have been a smile on Enxveria's alien features. The desert heat hit her like a physical blow, and Sarah knew the next trial had begun. Desert crucible. The transition from Antarctic cold to Saharan heat was so abrupt that Sarah's body went into shock. One moment she was standing in sub-zero temperatures, the next she was being blasted by air hot enough to scorch her lungs. The thermal layer that had helped her survive the cold now worked against her, trapping heat against her skin. Different challenges required different sacrifices. Enxveria's thoughts echoed in Sarah's mind as the alien materialized beside her, still seemingly unaffected by the extreme conditions. The purple aurora that had dominated the Antarctic sky was replaced by a shimmering heat mirage that turned the horizon into a wavering dream. Sarah quickly stripped off the thermal layer, leaving only her basic uniform. The sun beat down mercilessly, and she could already feel her skin beginning to burn. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, dunes rising like frozen waves in a sea of sand. The cold trial tested your ability to generate heat, Enxvaria observed. Now we shall see how you manage its excess. Sarah's military training kicked in again as she assessed her situation. No water, no shelter, and the temperature was well above 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius, and rising. She could feel the sand burning through her boots. You seem concerned, Enxvaria noted. Your species claims mastery over hot climates, yet I sense fear. Respect, Sarah corrected, already feeling sweat evaporating from her skin faster than she could produce it. Only fools aren't afraid of the desert, but fear doesn't mean surrender. She began scanning the landscape with new eyes, remembering her desert survival training. The dunes weren't just obstacles, they were tools if you knew how to use them. Your mind moves differently here, Enxveria's thoughts probed gently. Less urgent than in the cold, more contemplative. The cold kills quickly, Sarah explained, starting to move toward the lee side a large dune. The desert takes its time. Quick reactions will just exhaust you faster. Desert survival is about patience, observation, and timing. As if to challenge her words, the temperature suddenly spiked higher. The air became so hot that breathing felt like swallowing fire. Sarah's vision blurred as dehydration began to set in, but she forced herself to continue moving methodically. Most species seek height in this trial, Enxvaria commented as Sarah descended the dune's shadow side. They believe escape lies in seeing farther. Sarah managed a dry chuckle. Height means exposure. Exposure means death. She began digging into the dune's base, where the sand was cooler. Humans learned desert survival from the creatures that mastered it first. When the sun is your enemy, you go low, you go deep. Understanding flickered in Enxvaria's glowing eyes. You seek to create shelter as you did in the cold. With a difference, Sarah grunted, continuing to dig. Snow caves trap heat. Desert shelters need to breathe. Her fingers found what she was looking for, a layer of harder packed sand beneath the loose surface. The sand here is like the ocean. The surface tells you nothing. The real story is in the layers. Working quickly but efficiently, Sarah excavated a shallow cave in the dune's base. The packed sand held its shape, and the angle of the sun meant the entrance remained in shadow. More importantly, the temperature inside was notably cooler than the surface. Impressive, Enxvaria acknowledged, but shelter alone will not save you from dehydration. No, Sarah agreed, settling into her shelter, but it gives me time to think, and humans do our best thinking when we're up against impossible odds. She began examining the walls of her makeshift shelter more closely. The packed sand held traces of moisture, not much, but enough to confirm her theory. Desert plants survive by collecting condensation in the early morning hours. Their roots go deep, finding water tables hidden beneath the sand. You have neither roots nor time to wait for morning, Enxvaria pointed out. Sarah smiled despite her cracked lips. No, but I have something better, knowledge of basic physics. She began digging deeper at a specific angle, following the packed sand layer. Hot air rises, carrying moisture with it. When it hits cooler surfaces, like the underside of rocks or, say, packed sand layers, that moisture condenses. As if to prove her point, her fingers found slightly damp sand. It wasn't much, barely enough to moisten her parched lips, but it confirmed the presence of a moisture gradient. Your species turns survival into science, Enxvaria observed, a new note of respect in her mental voice. Science, art, whatever works, Sarah replied, continuing to work. Humans survived and spread across Earth, not because we were the strongest or fastest, but because we never stopped learning, never stopped analyzing. Every environment taught us something new. The alien's skin rippled with patterns of light, yet this knowledge comes at a price. I sensed memories of others who did not survive these lessons. Sarah paused in her work, old memories surfacing. Yes, every bit of survival knowledge we have was bought with blood and sacrifice. We honor those sacrifices by remembering, by passing on what we learned. The temperature spiked again, and Sarah felt consciousness starting to slip. But before the darkness could take her, she felt something new, a cool sensation spreading from where Enxvaria's hand now rested on her shoulder. You have demonstrated something unexpected. The alien's thoughts came clearly, despite Sarah's deteriorating condition. Not just physical endurance or technical knowledge, but a deeper understanding, the connection between past and present, between sacrifice and survival. The burning air began to cool, and Sarah felt strength returning to her limbs. The purple aurora appeared again, this time rippling across the desert sky like a celestial river. The desert trial is complete, Enxvaria announced. You have shown that humanity's strength lies not just in endurance, but in accumulation, of knowledge, of experience, of understanding. Sarah stood shakily, knowing what was coming next. Let me guess, this was just the warm-up. For the first time, she felt something like amusement in Enxvaria's mental touch. Indeed, the next trial will test not your ability to find water, but to survive within it. Are you prepared? Before Sarah could answer, the world began to shift again. The last thing she saw was Enxvaria's form shimmering with patterns that looked almost like anticipation. The pressure hit her first, followed by the cold darkness of the deep ocean. Depths of courage. The darkness of the deep ocean pressed against Sarah's eyes like a physical force. Water pressure threatened to crush her as she floated in the absolute black of the Hadal Zone, miles beneath the surface. Her lungs burned, instincts screaming for air, but something was different. She could breathe, somehow, though each inhale felt like drinking liquid metal. Welcome to the abyss, Enxvaria's thoughts rippled through the darkness, accompanied by a soft bioluminescent glow that revealed the alien's form, now altered to move smoothly through the water. Few species can endure these depths. The pressure here would reduce most life forms to their component atoms. Sarah tried to speak, but the crushing pressure made it impossible. Instead, she focused her thoughts, knowing Enxvaria would hear them. How am I still alive? We have modified your biology temporarily. Your blood now processes oxygen directly from the water, like your planet's fish. But the pressure, the cold, the darkness, those remain unchanged. These depths are the perfect test of what truly separates sentient life from mere survival machines. As if to emphasize the point, something massive moved in the darkness beyond Enxvaria's glow. Sarah caught a glimpse of an eye larger than her entire body, watching them with ancient intelligence before disappearing back into the black. Your heart rate increases, Enxvaria observed, yet I sense curiosity alongside fear. Humans have always been drawn to the unknown, Sarah thought back, trying to control her movement in the dense water. The ocean depths were one of our last great frontiers on Earth. We've mapped less of our own oceans and the surface of Mars. Yet you fear these depths. We fear what we don't understand, Sarah agreed. But that fear drives us to learn, to explore. The same curiosity that makes us afraid makes us brave. The water around them suddenly began to move, currents swirling with increasing violence. Sarah felt herself being pulled in multiple directions as Inxveria's glow dimmed. Then let us test that bravery, the alien's thoughts came. These currents lead to different destinations, some to safety, others to oblivion. Choose your path, Commander Chen, but choose quickly. Sarah forced herself to remain calm as the currents tugged at her. She could feel the different flows of water, each promising a different fate. Her instincts screamed to fight against the pull, to try to surface, but she knew that was impossible at this depth. Instead, she focused on what her body was telling her about the water itself. Your species relied on technology to explore these depths, Enxveria noted as Sarah carefully tested each current. Yet now you trust your bare senses. Technology extends our reach, Sarah thought back, but understanding comes from direct experience. These currents, they're not random. They're like rivers in the ocean. She could feel it now, the subtle differences in temperature, in pressure, in the way suspended particles moved through the water. One current was warmer than the others, carrying traces of geological activity. Hydrothermal vents, Sarah realized. Where there's heat, there's life. She allowed herself to be pulled into the warmer current, feeling it carry her through the darkness. Enxveria's glow followed, illuminating strange creatures that darted away from their passage. Things with too many eyes, too many teeth, evolved for a world without light. Most species choose based on fear, Enxveria commented. Seeking the current that feels safest, you choose based on understanding. Life finds a way, Sarah quoted, managing a smile despite the pressure. Even in the most extreme environments, life adapts, evolves, survives. Humans learned that the deep ocean vents might have been where life on Earth began. Where there's energy, there's possibility. The currents strengthened, carrying them faster through the black water. Suddenly, they emerged into a vast underwater canyon illuminated by the otherworldly glow of hydrothermal vents. Chimney-like structures reached toward the unseen surface, spewing superheated water that created a complex ecosystem of bizarre life forms. Beautiful, Sarah thought, genuinely awed despite the extreme conditions. No matter how many times humans discover places like this, it never gets less amazing. Your appreciation for beauty survives even here, in darkness and pressure that would drive most species mad, Enxveria observed. This is unexpected. Beauty and terror often go hand in hand, Sarah replied, watching alien fish swim through clouds of mineral-rich water. Humans learn to find wonder in the things that scared us most. It's how we overcame our fears. The pressure suddenly increased, forcing Sarah into a fetal position as pain lanced through her body. Around them, the vent field began to destabilize, underwater explosions sending shock waves through the water. And now, Enxveria's thoughts came through the pain. What do you feel now, Commander Chen, as the deep attempts to claim you? Despite the agony, Sarah forced her thoughts to remain clear. Respect, she managed. The ocean doesn't care if we live or die. It simply is. Understanding that is the first step to surviving it. She began to move, fighting against the pressure, using the violent currents instead of fighting them. The technique was similar to how deep-sea creatures navigated underwater avalanches, going with the flow while making subtle adjustments to avoid the worst of the turbulence. You adapt quickly, Enxveria noted, following her movements, even to conditions your species never evolved to face. That's humanity's real superpower, Sarah thought back. We don't just adapt to survive, we adapt to thrive. Every hostile environment we've encountered has eventually become a new frontier, a new home. The pressure peaked, threatening to implode her modified body, but Sarah maintained her focus. She could feel something changing in the water around them, a shift in the currents that suggested a larger pattern. The deep ocean taught us something crucial, she continued, her thoughts strained but determined. Everything is connected. These currents, these vents, the life they support, it's all part of a larger system. Understanding those connections is often the key to survival. Enxvaria's form began to glow brighter, patterns of light rippling across her skin in sync with the bioluminescent creatures around them. You see patterns where others see only chaos. This is significant. The pressure began to ease, and Sarah felt the crushing pain subside. The violent currents calmed, returning to their natural flow patterns. The depth trial is complete, Enxvaria announced. You have demonstrated not just physical adaptation, but understanding of principles that most species never grasp, the interconnection of all things, the beauty in terror, the patterns in chaos. Sarah felt her body beginning to change again, the modifications that had allowed her to breathe underwater starting to fade. What's next? She thought, already knowing the answer would involve yet another extreme. Next, Enxvaria's thoughts held something like anticipation. We test your relationship with fire itself. The water around them began to glow with that now familiar purple light, and Sarah prepared herself for the next transition. The last thing she felt before the world changed was the pressure of miles of ocean being replaced by the heat of molten rock. Heat, not the dry heat of the desert or the warm currents of the deep ocean, but primordial heat, the burning heart of the planet itself. Sarah found herself on a narrow obsidian ledge overlooking a lake of molten rock, the air shimmering with temperatures that should have incinerated her instantly. The core of your world, Enxvaria materialized beside her, the alien's form now glowing with an inner fire that matched the magma below. The source of your planet's magnetic field, its tectonic movement, its very life. Few species ever witnessed their world's heart beating. Sarah could feel her skin blistering despite whatever protection Enxvaria had granted her. Each breath brought superheated air into her lungs, making her feel like she was burning from the inside out. The ledge beneath her feet was slowly melting. Is this about endurance again? She managed to gasp. Or is there something more you're testing now? Observant. Enxvaria's mental voice held new depth. This trial is different. Here, at the boundary between solid earth and liquid fire, we test not just your physical limits, but your understanding of transformation itself. The ledge cracked, forcing Sarah to leap to another outcropping. The air was filled with toxic gases, and even with her enhanced resistance, she could feel consciousness trying to slip away. Your species, Enxvaria continued, is unique in how it views fire. Tell me why. Sarah grabbed a volcanic rock to steady herself, feeling it crumble in her grip. Fire shaped us, she said through gritted teeth. It was our first step beyond pure survival, the first element we learned to control. Yet it also destroys you. That's what makes it special. Sarah jumped again as her perch began to melt. Fire is transformation, destruction and creation in one force. Humans didn't just survive fire, we mastered it, used it to reshape our world. The lake of magma below them suddenly surged, sending fountains of molten rock into the air. Sarah dove behind a larger rock formation, feeling the heat increase to impossible levels. Your thoughts are changing, Enxvaria observed. The patterns are different from the previous trials. Sarah nodded, sweat instantly vaporizing from her skin. Because this isn't just about survival anymore, is it? These trials, they're not really about testing human endurance. They're about understanding who we are. For the first time, she felt surprise ripple through Enxvaria's mental touch. Explain. Each trial pushed me to my limits, yes, but each also revealed something about humanity itself. Sarah forced herself to stand, facing the alien despite the inferno around them. The cold showed our adaptability. The desert showed our knowledge. The depths showed our curiosity. And now fire. Yes. Enxvaria's form shifted, becoming more crystalline, more intense. Fire shows our potential for transformation. Sarah stepped forward, even as the rock beneath her feet began to liquefy. Humans aren't just survivors, we're changers. We take what we learn and use it to transform ourselves, our environment, our entire world. The magma lake erupted again, but this time Sarah didn't flinch. She watched the patterns in the chaos, seeing something she hadn't before. The purple aurora, she said suddenly. It wasn't just light, was it? It was you, your people, watching, testing, looking for species capable of more than just survival. Enxvaria's form grew brighter. You understand more than you should. Because that's what humans do. Sarah felt strength flowing through her despite the impossible heat. We observe, we learn, we connect the dots. The Celestial Trial Council isn't looking for tough species, you're looking for transformative ones. The chamber around them began to shift, the very rocks seeming to pulse with inner light. Enxvaria's form became almost too bright to look at. Your species is young, the alien's thoughts came stronger now. Volatile, dangerous, some would say. Yet in you we see something familiar. The same fire that burned in us before we learned to transcend mere physical form. Sarah's mind raced as pieces fell into place. You're not just testing us, you're looking for successors. The galaxy is vast, Enxvaria acknowledged. Full of species that survive, that exist, that persist. But few that truly understand the nature of existence itself, the constant dance between destruction and creation, between being and becoming. The chamber gave a final shudder, and suddenly the heat began to fade. Sarah felt her body returning to normal as the magma lake cooled and solidified. The trials are complete, Enxvaria announced, her form stabilizing. You have shown us not just your species' ability to endure, but its capacity to understand, to transform, to transcend. This was what we truly sought. Sarah stood straighter, her burns healing as she watched. So what happens now? Now, Enxvaria's mental voice held something like pride. We begin the real work. Your species has proven itself ready not just for membership in the galactic community, but for knowledge that will transform your understanding of reality itself. The chamber around them began to glow with that familiar purple light, but this time Sarah understood its true nature, not just energy, but consciousness itself, shaped and controlled by beings who had mastered the very forces of creation. One last question, Sarah said as reality began to shift around them. Was I chosen randomly for these trials, or was there a reason? Enxvaria's form began to fade, but her final thoughts came through clearly. Your species has a saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. We have been watching humanity for longer than you know, waiting for the right spark. You, Sarah Chen, were that spark. The world dissolved into purple light, and Sarah felt herself being transported one final time, not to another trial, but to the beginning of humanity's next great transformation. The real test was about to begin. The purple light faded, and Sarah found herself standing in what could only be described as the impossible made manifest. She stood on a platform of crystalline energy that floated in a vast chamber that seemed to exist both everywhere and nowhere at once. The walls, if they could be called that, shifted between states of matter like a dream made real. But it was the beings that took her breath away. Dozens of forms like Enxvaria, but each unique, their bodies composed of light and energy in configurations that defied human comprehension. The Celestial Trial Council in their true form. Welcome, their collective thoughts touched her mind with gentle power, to the Nexus. Enxvaria stood beside her, now glowing with the same transcendent energy as the others. This is our true home, Sarah Chen, the place between places, where thought and reality intersect. Sarah took a steady breath, forcing herself to remain calm despite the wonders around her. Is this what humanity could become? One potential future, Enxvaria confirmed, but not the only one. That choice remains yours. The chamber shifted, and suddenly Sarah was surrounded by holograms, images from Earth's history. She saw early humans discovering fire, building tools, creating art. She saw the first cities rise, the first ships set sail, the first rockets reach for the stars. Your species fascinates us, the Council's collective voice resonated. Most races follow predictable paths of development, but humans, you surprise us. We adapt, Sarah said, watching humanity's history unfold around her. We change. We transform. Yes, Engsuvaria moved closer. But it is how you change that sets you apart. Other species adapt to survive. Humans adapt to thrive, to create, to become more than you are. The images shifted to show humanity's greatest achievements alongside its greatest failures. Moments of triumph and tragedy, creation and destruction, all intertwined. The trials, Sarah realized, they weren't just about testing our physical limits. Each one revealed something about how humans face the unknown. Indeed, the Council's thoughts deepened. The cold showed your adaptability, yes, but it also showed your ability to turn adversity into advantage. The desert revealed not just your knowledge, but your understanding of sacrifice and learning. The depths tested more than your courage. They showed your ability to find patterns in chaos, beauty in darkness. And the fire? Sarah asked, though she already suspected the answer. Fire, Engxvaria's form brightened, showed us your true nature. Like the element itself, humans are agents of transformation. You take what you learn and use it to reshape yourselves, your world, your very understanding of reality. The chamber pulsed with energy, and new images appeared, possible futures, branching paths of human development. We offer you a choice, the Council announced. Humanity has proven worthy of joining the galactic community, but you could become more than just members. You could be partners in the greatest project in the history of consciousness itself. What project? The universe is dying, Engxvaria said simply. Entropy increases. Order decays. But we believe it doesn't have to end this way. We search for species with the potential to help us transcend these limitations, to find ways to preserve consciousness itself beyond the death of this reality. Sarah felt the weight of history, both human and cosmic, pressing down on her. Why us? We're young, volatile, barely space-capable. Precisely. The Council's approval radiated through the chamber. Your very youth, your adaptability, your unique way of seeing challenges as opportunities, these are exactly what we need. Fresh perspectives, new approaches, the fire of transformation that burns so brightly in your species. The images around them shifted again, showing humanity spreading across the stars, learning, growing, evolving in ways that challenged the very definitions of existence. The choice is not yours alone, Engxvaria cautioned. You will return to Earth as our ambassador. The decision to accept our offer must come from humanity itself. But you, Sarah Chen, will be the bridge between what humanity is and what it could become. Sarah looked at her hands, remembering how they had dug through snow, sand, and rock during the trials. Human hands, shaped by millions of years of evolution, yet capable of reshaping a world in turn. You said I was a spark, she said finally. That you were waiting for the right moment, the right person. Yes, Engxvaria's form shifted closer. In you, we saw the perfect balance of human qualities, the determination to survive, the curiosity to explore, the wisdom to understand, and most importantly, the courage to transform. The chamber began to pulse with increasing energy, and Sarah felt reality preparing to shift once more. Your return to Earth will mark the beginning. The Council's thoughts came one final time. But remember, the trials you faced were merely preparation. The real challenge lies ahead, helping humanity understand its true potential while navigating the dangers that come with such knowledge. No pressure, Sarah managed the smile. Just helping humanity transform into a species capable of transcending universal entropy. Your use of humor in the face of cosmic responsibility, Enxtheria's mental voice held genuine warmth, is yet another reason we chose well. The purple light began to build again, but this time Sarah understood its true nature, not just energy, the concentrated potential for transformation itself. One last thing, she said as the light grew brighter. All those other species you tested, the ones who failed, what happened to them? They survived, Enxtheria answered simply. They exist, they persist, but they do not transform, they do not become. That fire, that spark of potential transformation, that is uniquely human. Guard it well, Sarah Chen. The future of not just your species, but of consciousness itself, may depend on it. The light reached its peak, and Sarah felt herself beginning to transition back to Earth. But she wasn't returning as the same person who had left. Like humanity itself, she had been tested, challenged, and transformed. The real work was just beginning. As the nexus faded around her, replaced by the familiar walls of the Antarctic Research Station, Sarah smiled. Humanity had just been handed both its greatest challenge and its greatest opportunity. It was time to show the universe what humans could really do. After all, transformation was what they did best.